Well, our big focus, the historic hush money trial of Donald Trump that got underway, with the arduous process of selecting a jury to hear the case, charging the former US president with falsifying business records in order to stifle stories about his sex life. 9 potential jurors in Donald Trump's hush money trial cleared an initial round of vetting as the first ever criminal trial of a former US president kicked off in a Manhattan courtroom. The day actually ended without any jurors being seated. The selection process was scheduled to resume on Tuesday. However, the judge warned Trump that he would go to jail if he meddles with the proceedings. He informed Trump that trial proceedings would continue even in his absence. In fact, we have a ground report from William Denslow. Listen in.
First day of Donald Trump's criminal hush money case is underway. This is a trial that revolves around allegations that Donald Trump paid hush money to a porn star in the lead up to the 2016 presidential election. Donald Trump has pleaded not guilty to the 34 criminal counts he faces. He says that this is a case of essentially a weaponized justice system, all in an effort to hurt his chances of winning the presidency come November's election. Legal proceedings started here in Lower Manhattan with a few legal issues that needed to be ironed out. And one key issue went against Donald Trump and his legal team. They wanted to see Judge Juan Merchan step aside. They are furious about the gag order placed on the former president. Donald Trump saying it is unconstitutional, but Judge Merchan says he will not be recusing himself. In a win for prosecutors as well, Karen McDougal, who claims to have had an affair with Donald Trump, will be allowed to testify. But in a win for Donald Trump and his legal team, an Access Hollywood tape in which Donald Trump can be heard saying he can grab women by the genitalia, that will not be allowed to be played in court. However, prosecutors can at least make reference to it. Jury selection is now underway in what is expected to be an incredibly fraught process to find 12 jurors deemed to not have strong opinions of the former president, either in favour or against him. For a quick sense of how difficult that will be, of the first 96 people called upon as potential jurors, over half of them put their hands up when asked the question if they had strong opinions of the former president, whether they could be impartial. Because more than half of them put their hands up, all those that did were automatically relegated from being possible jurors. Jury selection in of itself is a process expected to last up to 2 weeks. The trial in its entirety could last up to 2 months.
Well, the former US president is sticking with a strategy that amounts to attack and delay, it seems. Outside the court, though, Mr. Trump said the trial was nonsense and an assault on America, and I'm quoting him here. For a credible perspective from the ground, let's go across to the former US Assistant Secretary of Commerce, Raymond Vickery, who joins us live on NDTV at the moment. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on NDTV. He's also a senior associate at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Sir, isn't the dismissals of dozens of jurors an indication of how challenging it could be to find a group of 12 impartial jurors for a case that's considered a high-profile sex scandal that also involves a former US president running once again for the White House?
Well, thank you very much for having me. Yes, it does indicate the difficulty. This is a very important day for democracy. Great democracies like the United States and India pride themselves on the rule of law. And there are 2 basic principles here that are at stake and under strain. One is that no person is above the law. And the second is that the criminal law isn't used for political purposes. Now, what has happened, of course, is that the former president is claiming that, 1, he's above the law, and 2, that this is being done for political purposes. And of course, it's really not. It's the district attorney for Manhattan, which has nothing to do with the federal government, has nothing to do with the president at all. So it's going to be very difficult, particularly since so many people, I mean, there's nobody in the United States that doesn't know about Donald Trump, and very few that don't have an opinion about him. So it's not surprising that if you get 100 people as potential jurors, half of them are going to say, well, I've already made up my mind about Donald Trump. So this will take some time, probably the full 2 weeks to seat a jury, and then we'll see what happens.
Right, Mr. Vickery, also another downstream effect of Trump's multiple indictments is that pollsters are now asking questions about Trump's legal troubles collectively rather than asking about each individual case. What is the ground reality?
Well, I think the ground reality is which has been stated by Trump when he was running the first time, and that is that for his supporters, he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue in New York and he wouldn't lose any support. So that group of Trump supporters is a ground reality, and they're going to stay with him regardless. The ground reality beyond that is that the people who will decide the election this year are very few uncommitted, and they will be influenced by what comes out at trial. At this point, many of those people are not focused on a particular trial. As you know, this is the first of 4 different trials which he can be subject to, and actually this one is the one which is probably the least important from a constitutional point of view. The others have to do with interference of the election and the documents. But people I don't think who are in this group of persuadables have not yet focused on that, and I think they will look at what happens. And if you can get 12 people, which is going to be very difficult to do, it'll make a difference.
Right. Some people are also debating whether Manhattan's District Attorney Alvin Bragg, a Democrat, should have been brought on the case and whether it's strong enough. But there are very valid concerns at the same time that this is about an effort to defraud the American voters back in 2016 and also to keep them from learning material information that could or would have affected their vote.
Well, there's no question about it. Of course, the fact that the prosecutor is a Democrat is not really dispositive of anything because it's completely separate from what happens with the administration for the full United States, the federal administration. It is customary to have an elected prosecutor, and in New York, elections are usually won by Democrats. That doesn't mean that you can't do anything that has to do with a Republican. And the real question here, of course, is why did Trump do this? And the prosecutor's view is, and I think it's pretty strong if you look at the Stormy Daniels tape, if you look at what was happening at the time, that Trump wanted to keep this from the American public so he could win the election. And you can't do that, particularly with corporate funds, which then you say are for legal fees, when it's really going to hush money to keep someone quiet so the American voters won't know the full story.
Right. In fact, the ongoing war and the conflict in the Middle East has also clearly shaken up U.S. politics in different ways. We were reading that younger Americans and Arab Americans so oppose the White House's support for Israel that Joe Biden could even lose a state because of it in the election. But for some heads of state in the Middle East, perhaps a transition away from Joe Biden may mean less interference and criticism from Washington. But we're waiting to see what that will mean for foreign policy, for domestic politics. Let's see how this election plays out. But as always, thank you so much, Mr. Raymond Vickery, for making time for us and joining us on NDTV.